The TeachPitch podcast. We are very excited to be launching a series of interviews for TeachPitch, a global community of 50,000 subscribers from over 205 countries to date. And for these interviews, we have selected a number of subscribers who have achieved great things. And by great, I mean amazing. Think of former presidents, entrepreneurs, people who've built hospitals, huge non-profit organizations, successful journalists, doctors, etc. And what all our guests have in common is that despite their great success, they've encountered many enormous challenges. So what were these challenges and how did they overcome them? That's what we're going to be talking about here. My name is Aldo and I'm massively looking forward and very grateful you can join us on this journey. So sit back, relax and download the podcast here.
You can't change what people think of you, but you can change how you react to them. Yeah. And that's what I've kind of been learning to do over the past couple of years, is recognizing that, there will be people who shoot you down. There'll be thousands of people who will tell you that you can't do what you're doing just because you're a girl or just because you don't look like everybody else in the field. But at the end of the day, you have the same amount of power as everyone else, right? Yeah. And I can say that from personal experience.
Happy New Year, everyone. My goodness, 2022 has started. And we shouldn't think anymore about what we're going to do in 2022. I don't want to be thinking. I want to be doing. I really want to be out there and live every day to the fullest. I'm so excited that so many things are coming together for TeachPitch, but also for the podcast. We've had great feedback on our Christmas episodes. I combined 2 interviews with Dr. Mark Brackett, who was the director at the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, and then a sheikha, a Middle Eastern princess from Kuwait named Sheikha Intisar, and they both spoke about emotions and happiness and how relevant these were in genuinely becoming a better teacher or student or better person altogether. So that was such a blessing, and it was so amazing that I got to interview these people, but it doesn't stop there. And now I'm so happy to kick off 2022 with an interview with Gitanjali Rao. Now, you might have heard from Gitanjali because at the tender age of, I believe, 14 years old, she was elected as Time Kid of the Year, the very first ever Time magazine Kid of the Year. And not without reason, of course, because she is a young inventor and an aspiring scientist. She has invented a couple of great tools, and we will speak about these tools in further detail, that are really very admirable. One detects whether there's any lead in water, so that everyone, before they start using tap water, they can detect whether the water isn't toxic, whether there's no poison in there. And the other one is around detecting bullying in schools. And these are just 2 inventions, and Gitanjali is coming out with a lot more inventions. And that's really amazing because, as I said before, today she's only 16 years old. And it was so amazing to speak to her. And in the beginning, I was a little bit skeptical. I don't know why, but I was like, this cannot be that someone of 16 already achieved so much and knows so much and is such an all-rounder. So I was trying to kind of find out more about Gitanjali, and I noticed for myself that I was trying to kind of see whether she was real, yes or no, whether her entire being wasn't scripted. And I don't know why I did that, but it was a little bit like I was trying to find out, like, okay, is this genuinely you, or are you a big marketing or PR machine. And I have to tell you that I was punished for being skeptical, and you will notice throughout the interview, because she is so sharp and she is so genuine and she's so real in the things that she has to share. And at the same time, she's a teenager. So she has all the teenage features as well, next to being Time Magazine first ever Kid of the Year, and has so much to bring. So with a new year starting, with us talking about our plans for the coming year, I say, stop making plans and just start doing. And I sincerely hope that this interview with Gitanjali Rao can be an inspiration for all of this. So enjoy this interview with Time Magazine first ever Kid of the Year, the Kid Inventor, Gitanjali Rao.
This episode of the Teach Pitch podcast was recorded at the World Innovation Summit for Education, WISE, in Doha on December 9th, 2021. We are extremely grateful to the Qatar Foundation and WISE team who supported and sponsored us in bringing this together. More information about the WISE Summit can be found on their website, wise-qatar.org. Thanks a lot, WISE.
Yes, and we're back. This 2021 summit features more than 300 speakers from around the world and over 200 sessions, including workshops, masterclasses, and Ask Me Anything sessions. And for my next Ask Me Anything, I'm so very, very happy and feel very, very blessed that I'm sitting here next to Gitanjali Rao, who, really has spoken the roof off yesterday, I would say, in her interview. I tweeted, what a force of nature, because Gitanjali, my hat's off to you.
Thank you.
You are an absolute inspiration to myself at age 42. And I'm sure you are to many other people in this world from all ages. Now, what strikes me is that you're not only very clever, obviously, but you're also extremely eloquent and possess the verbal talent to clearly explain the problems that you tackle, and you present your solutions very clearly to the world. So my first question is, where does that verbal skill where does that come from? Let's leave alone the scientist part.
First of all, I appreciate it. Thank you all for having me here today. It is just such an incredible opportunity to be at WISE and to be here. I think that's a hard question to answer because it's not something that I guess I was taught, essentially. I've always loved speaking. I just loved putting my message out there, whether it's something that matters or it's something that doesn't. And I think once I get really passionate about something I'm talking about, it kind of just works, right? Yeah. And I think I was also put into so many situations where I was just so uncomfortable at a young age, and that I had to learn to basically communicate and learn to put myself out there in the best way possible. And I think just by being myself, like I'm a 16-year-old, I'm South Asian, I'm a female, it's very easy to be undermined for what I do. Yeah. And so that's really just another thing I like to throw out there in the middle is communication has just become an important part of my daily life because my voice helps me speak for who I am. Yeah, so.
That's it. Well, again, my hats off to you. You demonstrate that age should not be an impediment.
Thank you.
For those who desire to change the world for the better. Now, you are an inventor. You're a speaker. You're a UNICEF youth advocate.
I am.
You were Time Kid of the Year, which is quite a title and enormous acknowledgement. You've been interviewed all over the place by practically everyone, and again, very well deserved. I would like to dive into your invention specifically, because the journey started with Tethys. Is that correct?
Started before that, I would like to say. I think it was when I was 4 or 5 years old, I was coming up with ideas. Tethys was definitely my first ever, I guess, prototype, the first tool that I built and the first tool that's actually gotten somewhere per se.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, because that's an interesting part, because when I looked at Tethys and Kindly, I think they're both genius.
Thank you.
But as a technology builder myself, I was looking at what they have in common.
Right.
Because one is, of course, focused on pollution and the environment, and the other one is on human relations and behavior.
Absolutely.
Do they have commonalities for you?
And that's a very common question that I get, is because I do quite literally tend to go from thing to thing, right? And people are always like, oh, what do you want to major in? Like, you do so much. What is your goal? Like, what are you trying to do at the end of the day? And long story short, I don't really know, because again, I'm a teenager. I try and jump from thing to thing and see what I want to do. But at the end of the day, when it comes to similarities between ideas, it's really just what I feel a connection to and what I recognize needs to be solved at that point. And I guess what's impacting the community the most at that point, right? It gives a lot of opportunity for anybody to kind of come up with solutions as well. But I try to jump in and make my mark, whether that's something big or whether that's something small again. So with Tethys, it was my lead detection tool. At that time, I was hearing about the water crisis that happened in Flint, Michigan. And it was a problem that stood out to me and one that I decided to tackle. Similarly, a couple of years later, cyberbullying, still an issue that everyone faces across the world. As you see, my problems are essentially going from more specific to bigger and broader. And I think that's how it's continued to be over these past couple of years. Currently, the solution I'm working on is a way to detect for parasites in water in third world countries. And so the similarities are very difficult to find, but the differences are very easy. And I think the reasoning for that is because the similarities are what I make them to be. So.
Yeah. And when you say, just for me to understand, when you start building on a solution, so you tackle a problem, do you then you work with other people? Is there like a team of developers, or are there people working with you?
So I actually come up with solutions from, I guess, idea to finish by myself.
Oh, wow.
However, beyond that, yes, I of course do have a team. And what that team does is put it out there, and then investors in the market comes to me and says, here's what we want from you, right? For that reason, though, none of my ideas have become a product yet. Except for Kindly, actually, who I've partnered with UNICEF to create Kindly powered by UNICEF, essentially, which also comes with its own anti-cyberbullying initiative, which is great. However, Tethys is a patented device. My device for opioid addiction is currently a prototype still. So each of my projects are at their own stages, but obviously I have a team that helps me take it onto the business world after that, which I don't necessarily excel in. I can come up with the ideas, but beyond that, it's kind of out of my hands.
Yeah. So you need a good business team behind you to make it scale. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I keep on forgetting that you're just only 16 years
old.
Thank you. I keep on talking because you're tackling questions and issues that at age 42 I'm struggling with, and just keep on forgetting about. You're 16, and not to be not to be condescending or patronizing or anything. It's amazing.
Thank you.
What would you like to be or do if you are not already that in 20 years time? What are we going to be talking
20
about?
20 years. That's a really long, that's a real long way. I think the biggest thing that I would hopefully love to do is start a company. Now exactly in what, I don't know. However, exploring my options, right? I'm really passionate about biotech. So maybe a company in there. I've also been looking at biophysics, seeing the possibilities for that to happen as well. I'm not the best at physics, but I do know people who are. So partnerships, maybe.
So, and in terms of, because you're now at a STEM school?
Yes, I am.
And in terms of kind of academic formation, would you any specific choices if you're already there yet? Yeah.
Absolutely will pursue higher education. Again, where I'm not necessarily sure. I'd love to be on either coast. MIT and Stanford are great options. Also Yale. But I'm not really sure, right? There could be a lot of options out there, but hopefully we'll get my PhD in something I'm passionate about. And just continue to do what I love at the end of the day.
Yeah. What is a family dinner like for the
Oh my gosh.
What does that look like? I just want to have a little peek. So how do things work? You have a little brother?
I do. I have a 9-year-old brother who is on the completely opposite side of the spectrum from me. He's a very artistic human being. He's the person you can sit and stare at paintings for up to 5 hours, whereas I'm always running around trying to do things. Family dinner, that's a hard question. It changes on a day-to-day basis. There's some sort of debate always happening 24/7. There's always news playing in the background, and there's always water somewhere just spilled because my brother and I will get into fistfights eventually. It's very chaotic, but it's very organized in a weird type of way. But no, yeah, both of my parents are in business and IT. And so they're on the totally different side of the spectrum from me when I'm working on my research. And so there's always updates to bring to the table, whether it's about getting an A on a test or whether it's about some life-changing discovery I've made.
Yeah. But I'm happy to hear that there's also water spilled and whatever.
Yeah.
So it's just like,
it's always crazy.
Yeah, good. Nice. The title Time Kid of the Year being the very first one, that's an amazing title and so very well deserved. You received this acknowledgement just over a year ago. How has the last year been for you?
The past year, it's been a whirlwind to say the least, right? It's been so incredible. It's been so exciting. It's provided so many opportunities up front as well, but it's really just made every day just a new adventure, a new journey. I'm always traveling. I'm always going somewhere new. I'm always learning about new cultures, meeting new people, doing new interviews, right?
Yeah.
But I think most of all, it's just really exciting to have my voice heard and put the message out about what I want to say and inspire others to do the same, hopefully.
And when you started, so before the title and whatever was shared with you, so your life completely, specifically on the level of media attention, kind of went the other way. I can.
It did. It got really hectic really fast. But I do enjoy every moment of it. I think it's just another opportunity for me to learn, essentially. Again, it is hard to balance at times with a full high school schedule too, but I'm slowly getting to the swing of things.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, well, that's great to hear. What would be your message to other clever, ambitious young women like yourself who are working hard to make a difference? What would you tell them? This generation that we need to unmute, and you're a clear example of that. What, if anything, would you want to say to them?
Oh, what I would probably say is, it's okay to dream big and it's okay to come up with ideas, even if you think a lot of people are going to hate it, right? For a long time, I hid behind who I really was because I was so scared of what other people would think of me. But what I realized is that you can't change what people think of you, but you can change how you react to them. And that's what I've kind of been learning to do over the past couple of years, is recognizing that, there will be people who shoot you down. There'll be thousands of people who will tell you that you can't do what you're doing just because you're a girl or just because you don't look like everybody else in the field. But at the end of the day, you have the same amount of power as everyone else, right? And I can say that from personal experience.
Again, such a strong message. Thank you so much. And also that that you see the downside of the struggles and that people don't necessarily believe in you, and must have taken so much strength to get Tethys and Kindly and as you said, other tools that you might have started with that didn't go anywhere. Like, that takes perseverance, that takes skill, that takes patience.
It does.
And it's admirable that you've given it all the time. Not going 20 years from now, but what are we going to hear or see from you next year?
Next year, a few things. So I'm looking to create an innovation curriculum, incorporating innovation earlier into the curriculum as well. I did write a book called A Young Innovator's Guide to STEM, which is available out there, but I'm hoping to write another one as well in this next couple of years about how to make these ideas into reality, right? What is reality? How do you bring these ideas to the real world? But not necessarily going into the money phase, just stopping at impact and seeing how that goes. And this next year, I also want to introduce innovation hubs in countries across the world who may not have the same amount of resources as we do in the United States. Potentially also recruit youth innovation advocates who can run these workshops with me everywhere and kind of be, examples of innovators and representatives for innovation in their prospective countries. So those are some of my immediate plans. I'm going to continue partnering with big organizations as well, such as UNICEF. I did recently do a brand deal for the computer brand Lenovo for Lenovo's Kind City project too, which has also been such a great opportunity to talk about what the future of a kind city looks like. And I think providing more opportunities like that for students, but also just for the general public is what more stuff that I want to do next year. There's a lot in store, but it's all fun, and there's never really a deadline. It's my own deadline. So
no, and you also need to be at school and kind of do all of these things, but it's amazing. Going back to that innovation hub, is there a way for people to already get involved, or how? Because you've come to the right place at the World Innovation Summit for Education.
Yeah, absolutely. So with my innovation hubs itself, I'm actually looking for people to partner with to be able to create these hubs in multiple places across the world. So I run innovation workshops for schools in refugee camps such as Kenya, as well as a lot of West African schools, especially in the Ghana area. Also run a lot of workshops for girls' schools in Afghanistan. And what I've seen is that, they do have the passion, the drive, but sometimes they don't have the resources and the workshops available to bring their ideas to reality.
Yeah.
So the goal is to create, hopefully little rooms or areas where students are able to spread their ideas and create startup ideas, no matter which country they're from. And that's the goal of the innovation hubs. But I don't really know how exactly I'm going to get there, but I know it's a step in the future. So if anybody wants to, keep up with my journey on that as well, you can check out my website at gitanjalirao.net, and it has all of the details about my journey. Hopefully we'll have some updates about my hubs there in a bit. But I'm actually looking at partnering with an organization and potentially educational organizations to be able to make that happen.
You've come to the right place. And
Thank
again,
you.
go gitanjalirao.net.
Yep.
If you're interested to know more about the great work of Gitanjali, or want to partner with her and her team for these innovation hubs. I'm going back to the opening plenary of yesterday, because we're talking about unmuting the next generation, and lots of concrete examples are given about, it's all nice and lovely to have a buzzword like unmute, but what does that look like in practice, right?
Yeah.
So one of the suggestions was, well, listen, teachers have as much to learn from students as the other way around, right? So the learning relationship is a two-way street, not a one-way street, so is that a point of view you agree with, or?
Absolutely. I do a lot of in the workshops that I run, one of the biggest questions that I get is, what do you look for in a good mentor, right? And in ways, teachers are mentors. And what I've recognized is that a good mentor is someone that you can learn from, but also someone that can learn from you. You were talking about what the word unmute really means. And what that means, I think, to me, is being able to put teachers and students on the same playing field.
Yeah.
And recognizing that teachers can learn from students just as much as they can learn from teachers.
Yeah.
Shout out to my physics teacher. He's my favorite teacher. And what he did in the beginning of the year was he set up a list of expectations that he had for the class, but also a list of expectations that he had for himself.
Yeah.
And he spent the 1.5 hour class just adding things to the list, taking things off the lists. And by the end of that, it was kind of like, you don't want tests? We'll get rid of tests.
Yeah.
You want only 2 quizzes this year? We'll add only 2 quizzes this year.
Wow.
And I think that's what we need to see, right? More flexibility in teachers, more opportunities, because a lot of times students have been stigmatized to be put in the way, right? That they're in the way of what a traditional education system should look like.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, who's the education system for? The students.
Yeah.
They know exactly what they want. We know exactly what we want to learn and how we want to learn, right?
Yeah.
And it's a huge risk for the education system to say, hey, let's put this in the hands of the kids.
Yeah.
But once that happens, once a little bit of trust is put in the kids, the rest kind of just follows itself.
Yeah.
And it makes it much easier for anybody to kind of get involved.
Yeah. And no one said like, let's do it completely different. I think just give, allow for students and children to share their perspective. And there could be many procedural things put in place to do that, right? So that it doesn't go in a completely opposite direction. It doesn't have to be, it could be incremental steps. It doesn't have to be like one completely different.
Just like you were saying, you don't need to just scrap everything and start again. It just needs to be steps to be able to look at how can kids' perspectives be taken into account. That's all, I'm asking for. That's all we're asking for, essentially.
Yeah, it's a very good perspective. I'm looking for something to make it more concrete. So we just had an interview with Sheikha Intisar.
Yeah.
And she basically said, like, at the end of the day, let's have a student also share what was taught that day, right? So if a student is kind of tasked with, okay, you need to kind of feed back to your teacher what, all the things you've seen today.
Yeah.
Do you think that's something that would help? Yeah.
I can absolutely hear that. First of all, yes, I think that's a huge part of it. But if we're looking at something concrete, something our school has started to do, and I would love to see in other schools, is that students play a role in hiring teachers.
Yeah.
In our school, students also interview the teachers,
Yeah. Oh,
and
wow.
they're able to pick out, who's the teacher that is most flexible, ones that's most creative, one that fits the learning style of the students.
Yeah.
And that's why, I've loved every teacher that I've talked to,
Yeah.
because all of these teachers are ones that are hand selected from students,
Yeah.
and ones that, again, another huge risk. But I would love to see that in more schools,
Yeah.
right? I love to see that type of relationship between students and teachers and even administration,
Yeah.
is putting the trust in the hands of the students
Yeah.
to hire teachers and to see which teachers best fit their needs.
Yeah.
That's what we're missing. And I think being able to do that would close a big part of that gap.
Yeah. That's
Risky move, but
it's a
it's
risky
worth
move.
it.
No, but I don't think it's that risky. I think it's very good. It's very good to give a proper voice to students every step of the way, and to have them properly weigh in on things. Naturally, on both levels, there should be quality control, as well as for the teacher, the work that the teacher is doing, as well as the students. People need to take it seriously. But I think
Of course,
once you've done that, then I think you can get a lot out of it.
Right.
Yeah. Now let's turn the tables.
Cool.
This is your Wise on Air podcast. Okay. Who would you like to interview? Who has inspired you the most in your incredible journey thus far?
Oh, it could be anyone.
It could be anyone. Yeah, it could also be a seance if it's someone who's passed. But when you see or read things, is there anyone that you said like, wow?
I would one day love to interview Malala.
Malala,
yeah. Her work is, I've connected with her off of social media, but her work is just incredible. And just the drive and power that she does things with is something that just resonated with me. She's probably one of the first people who got me into activism.
Wow.
Not necessarily just doing my research, but also talking to people about it and why it's important. And again, just receiving a Nobel Prize at such a young age is such an incredible accomplishment. And her work stands by me every single day. And I know it stands by a lot of other girls who really needed that, right? Yeah. That education system as well. And she's a huge role model for everything that I do. So I'd love to interview her one day.
Very good choice, Malala Yousafzai, and I'm sure you'll manage one day. I'm vouching for you.
Thank you.
To talk to Malala. So also Malala and Malala's team, if you're listening, Gitanjali wants to interview you. Please allow this, because great spirits need to come together to unmute the next generation. Similar question, but then around books. Do you like to read?
I do love reading.
Any favorite or a list of favorite books worthy of mentioning or recommending?
A couple. I think if my favorite author is Walter Isaacson.
Mine too. Yeah.
Really?
With the biographies. Yeah.
Incredible. It's so well written.
Yeah.
My favorite book right now is Codebreaker.
Yeah.
It's the story of Jennifer Doudna, who was one of the Nobel Prize awardees for her work in CRISPR-Cas9 technology, which is gene editing technology.
Yeah.
Her work is incredible. Another one of my big role models as well, along with Charpentier. And her work is so incredible. I've loved reading her story. And I think it was just well portrayed by Isaacson too.
Yeah.
Another book that I really, really do recommend to people is Think Again. It's by Adam Grant.
Yeah.
And it is such a well-written book.
Yeah.
And it's the power of how to think and why we think, basically.
Yeah.
It's very confusing. It took me a very long time to understand it. Still kind of don't understand it. But it's so powerful to think about, what is overthinking, what is not thinking enough. And I've never heard someone dive that deep into thinking. And it helped me recognize how I think. That's another huge book I recommend. If we're talking about like casual reads, Percy Jackson series, always. That's my favorite book of all times that'll never go away.
Okay.
Percy Jackson, the Lightning Thief.
Wow, these are great recommendations. And Walter Isaacson, by the way, is also the biographer of Steve Jobs' book, and he wrote about Leonardo da Vinci and Einstein.
It's so great.
The way he writes it's so well done.
I think it's this idea of his work is so simplified that anybody can understand it, but it still holds the same power of the work that these individuals have done in their lifetime as well. I've actually spoken at multiple conferences with him, but have never gotten to meet him. So another person I'd like to meet if you or your team is watching.
Walter Isaacson, if you're listening, we want to meet you, or Gitanjali wants to meet you, as Adam Grant. And Adam Grant, he co-wrote also Option B with Sheryl Sandberg, right? So which I thought, that's why I got to know his work. And he also has a great podcast that I'm envious of. But yeah, no, very good suggestions. Gitanjali, you are a force of nature. I'm sure the world is going to hear a lot more from you. I'm vouching for you and hope that all your wishes come true, that you will continue to help the world and women and the next generation in the way that you do. And let's keep in touch and let's talk on another wise. I wish you also all the best with your innovation hubs. And once again, go to gitanjalirao.net if you want to help out. And similar, keep an eye on her initiative against cyberbullying for UNICEF. Gitanjali Rao, thank you very, very much for your time.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
If you liked this episode of the Teach Pitch podcast, then it would mean the absolute world if you could share it with your friends and or give it a short review on your preferred podcast platform. The more you share your ideas about these interviews, the more people will find out about them. So do let us know what you think. We'd be very, very grateful.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod for our beautiful theme music, Le Grand Chase. This podcast was produced and edited by Natalie Piles. Project coordination by Inva Cheney.